Good afternoon, everyone. Finally, the time has come where we are in the chapel together with the most professional setup thus so far. Thank you to Big Big Slow and Paul Irving, the Slow House Party, and it is a learning curve right now, and everybody is having mostly a lot of fun with her technology. Today we had a lot of fun here at the chapel. I have just so much respect for everybody who is trying to do these online concerts. It's just an amazing, amazing feat. And I've been doing tiny balcony sessions, and then when I play at the chapel, I call them tiny chapel sessions. So today we are doing tiny chapel session. This is number 9. I've done 9 concerts so far from my home and also at the chapel. So this is number 9, and I'm so happy to do it on Slow House Party. This is going to be an amazing thing. So thank you so much, and I'm going to just step right into it. A couple days ago, the classical world had a great, huge loss. It was the loss of very, very famous cellist of our decade, of many decades, Lynn Harrell. He passed away, and it really touched a lot of us because during this time we can't have the connection that we usually do in person. So today I would like to start my recital with the Bach Prelude in G major for cello, but it has been transcribed for violin, so it will be in the key of D major. And so I would like to dedicate this to the memory of Mr. Lynn Harrell. We play in such a beautiful place today. I wanted to talk a little bit about the old Santa Rosa Chapel. It's located in Cambria on Main Street, and if you blink, you'll miss the driveway to it. It's a very, very steep driveway up. And some years ago, I was preparing for an Albach concert, and I asked a friend of mine who takes care of the property here if I could practice in here. And I instantly fell in love with the acoustics. And from that point on, I've been playing here regularly, and I also have a concert series called Cambria Concerts Unplugged. And so we have full concerts in here all year round, except for the winter months, because there's no heat. There's no heat, and there's only 2 plugs in the whole place. So we have to be careful about what time of year we play. I am going to move on to one of my favorite composers, Vivaldi, Antonio Vivaldi, and bring to you the season that we are in right now, which is obviously spring. I mean, I don't know about you, but my nose has been running from everything. And there's so many beautiful flowers right now. And we think that Vivaldi wrote the sonnets that go with these seasons. So I'm going to be doing spring, and I'm also going to read you the sonnet of spring before I play. So comes in 3 movements: an allegro, a largo, and then an allegro. So the first movement is, springtime is upon us. The birds celebrate her return with festive song, and murmuring streams are softly caressed by the breezes. Thunderstorms, those heralds of spring, roar, casting their dark mantle over heaven. Then they die away to silence, and the birds take up their charming songs once more. Largo, the second movement. On the flower-strewn meadow with leafy branches rustling overhead, the goat herder sleeps, his faithful dog beside him. Allegro, the last movement. Led by festive sound of rustic bagpipes, nymphs and shepherds lightly dance beneath the brilliant canopy of spring. So there you have it. And I will get to the first movement, just a moment. Back to my Johnny Jump, where we go. So I would bow, and I can still bow. I'm still going to bow right now. Bowing. So thank you so much for enjoying spring with me. Vivaldi is just, he's a master, and his music will live on for many, many, many thousands of years, hopefully, if we're all still here. I'm going to also, I wanted to talk about the fact that I wanted to make this a little bit more of an educational video, an educational concert, because I love doing those, and giving you some small tidbits and some fun facts about each thing that I'm going to be playing today. So the next piece on the program is called Schön Rosmarin, and basically it's just translated beautiful rosemary or lovely rosemary. And it's by Mr. Fritz Kreisler. Kreisler spelled K-R-E-I-S-L-E-R. His years were 1875 to 1962, and he wrote this around 1905. And he was born in Austria, and he was known for his expressive and beautiful sweet sound. And he was a remarkable musician from an early age. He toured the whole U.S. when he was only 13 years old. And he wasn't accepted by the Vienna Philharmonic. He tried to get a job there, and they said that his vibrato was it didn't match anybody else in the orchestra. So he felt very rejected, and being a brilliant young man, he had a wonderful interest in medicine. So he studied medicine and became a doctor. And then he had a stint in the army for a while. He was worldly and well-rounded, and he returned to music, of course, because you always go back to music, in 1899, in a concert with the Berlin Philharmonic and a series of American tours that launched his career. Kreisler actually remained in America after being wounded in World War I. He returned to Europe in 1924, where he lived in Berlin and then France. He immigrated to America at the beginning of World War II and became a naturalized citizen, spending the majority of his time in New York City. So rosmarin simply means love, lovely rosemary. Just as someone might write a song in this day and age, the lilting style is filled with bravura, and though in strangely waltzing rhythm, it works beautifully together. such sweet, sweet Viennese waltzing music. Actually, two more pieces were written. A Liebeslied, which is love, sorrow, and also Liebesfreude, which, of course, I've forgotten the translation for that. But so I hope you're enjoying this online virtual concert. I feel you all together. I feel you here. And I want to welcome you if you're just joining us. I have a fun recital today. You know, Beethoven, it's his 250th birthday this year. So I've got a bunch of Beethoven on the program. The next thing I'm going to play is Beethoven's Romance for violin and orchestra, or piano. Oh, and by the way, I'd like you to meet my pianist. His name is Mr. Bose. And all of the piano music that you're hearing today is from a website that I found called pianoaccompaniment.com. And I am so grateful to Paul, who does all the piano parts, to have that website, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to do this. So, Paul the pianist in the UK. So, Beethoven's Romance for Violin and Orchestra. It was probably written around 1798 or perhaps even earlier. Beethoven was still in his 20s, and he was busy establishing himself in Vienna as a keyboard virtuoso as well as a composer. His radical new voice hadn't yet emerged, but the model for his music was Mozart and certainly French composers as well. The solo violin in this piece opens with a tender, graceful refrain, a melody, and a kind of a beautiful singing melody. The Romance also has its dramatic moments and forceful proclamations introduce each of the episodes. It's darkly dramatic, as the second episode, which explores various darker minor keys. And in my own words, perhaps it was paralleling the somewhat painful side of a budding romance, possibly not going as well as one might have hoped it would. However, all is not lost, and the piece closes. Listen for the lovely effect of the violin's 3 final note descent that is echoed by the piano. So enjoy Beethoven's Romance in F major. Turn this one up a little bit. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Beethoven. It's just a lovely piece, and it's a really lovely piece to play with the orchestra, which I did a few years ago with Symphony of the Vines. Speaking of, there are so many big groups that can't perform right now, and so I am a concertmaster at the moment of the San Luis Obispo Symphony, which is, I think, going to be doing something pretty soon online, streaming something that was recorded before, I believe on May 2nd. And they were just all gearing up, trying to find creative ideas to get all of everything out there. Cafe Musique, which many of you know me as being the violinist for that, we were going to say farewell after 15 years, but now nature has forced us to stay together just a little bit longer, which is fine with me. So we will have a proper goodbye when it's time. And also Orchestra Novo, I'm concertmaster of. I know that we'll be doing some projects with that orchestra. And so if you really like, also, I wanted to mention, if you really like what you're seeing and what you're hearing today, please support Big Big Slow and Paul's platform for this, and also me, because this is the way this is going to work now for who knows how long. And there are all kinds of donate buttons that you can press and see what happens when you do. So really, really appreciate that part of it. And I love preparing these programs. So I want to go straight into, because, well, we're doing really well on time, so I can still keep talking about other things. But I want to play some Mozart now, because no program is proper and complete without Mozart. So Mozart has written about 35 violin sonatas for violin keyboard, including some were left unfinished. He wrote the first when he was 6 years old. I don't know how that's possible. And the last was in 1788, 3 years before his death. So only one is in a minor key. So a lot of people out there is like, what's the difference between major key and minor key? Major key is happy, and minor key is somewhat sad. Sometimes it can be beautifully sad. So this sonata in E minor, which I'm going to play today, it's just 2 short movements. It was written in 1778 in Paris. The minor tonality gives the music a sort of a dignity and I guess a gravity that's unusual in his sequence of sonatas. Accompanied by his mother, Mozart had set out from Salzburg in September of 1777 in search of the position that his father would sure to bring him glory and finance and fame. Mozart did not return until January 1779, 2 years later, and the journey, which took him through Mannheim and Paris and Munich, can hardly be regarded as a success. Mozart spent too much money and found no position at all. But the true cataclysm of this whole trip with his mom was that his mother became ill when they were in Paris, and she died on the trip. So he had to somehow make the news back to his father in Salzburg. And so in this sonata, they think that he wrote this particular sonata when they were around that time, or they're not sure, but there's a part in the sonata that suddenly turns into a major key, and that depth of the feeling of depth when that happens is just incredible. It shifts to E major, and it's sort of the section of true glory of this glorious sonata. 200 years after this music was written, it is still wonderful today. And Alfred Einstein's claim is that this sonata is one of the miracles of Mozart's works. So me and Mr. Bose are going to play this little sonata for you. And here we go. you very much. It wanted to play itself over again. Thank you. Thank you so much, Brynn. That's just one of my favorite, sweetest little ditties, I call them. I can play it all day. So, these times are very challenging right now for many, many people, many organizations. And one that's particularly close to my heart is the hospice organizations all around the whole world, really, trying to take care of people in need during this time. And I wanted to mention another show that Paul is going to be doing on his platform. On May 5th, Tuesday, which is Giving Tuesday, at 5:30 in Morro, from a place in Morro Bay, a beautiful studio in Morro Bay, myself and Classe Nova, which consists of Cafe Musique members Eric Williams and Fred Murray on the bass and Eric on all the strumming instruments. We have this fun little trio that's going to be kind of moving on from Cafe Musique and taking a lot of that sort of world music. It's classical violin meets the bossa nova and lots of other fun tunes from around the world. And we are doing a fundraiser for the San Luis Obispo County Hospice Association, which is an all-volunteer hospice. Many of you know that I'm going back to school in just about a month. I have my first class, and I'm going to be getting my Certified Musicians Practitioner's Certificate. So I'm going to be going back to school at the Music for Healing and Transitions program, which is an online course mostly, but it deals with end-of-life care as well as everything in between. And my hope is to be implementing musical programs into hospitals around the area, because there really are none right now in San Luis Obispo County. There are no musical programs, which is just, music is so healing, as you know. So please tune in at 5:30 on Slow House Party for that fundraiser by Paul and Classe Nova. So with that, I'd like to move to something that's also very close to my heart, which is the theme from Schindler's List by John Williams. I played in the Boston Pops. I was in the Boston Pops for about 8 years, and first under John Williams and then Keith Lockhart. And it was one of the most fabulous, exciting times of my life. And one of the reasons why this is so important to me is because John Williams liked to use the Boston Symphony to record the themes of many of the movies that you guys go to theaters to see. One of them was Schindler's List. And so nobody in the Boston Symphony had ever heard it before, and we knew we were doing a recording session in Boston Symphony Hall. And so we went out to our music stands at that recording session and opened up this fresh, crisp, new music. It said Schindler's List on it. And we were recording the theme, which was, of course, written for Itzhak Perlman, the violinist. And so Itzhak comes out onto the stage and sits down, and we smoothed our music down and played this gorgeous, gorgeous tune that will forever be in the hearts and minds of everyone. So I'd like to present, I'm actually playing it with an orchestral part, so I have to bring it up here. Schindler's List with an orchestral accompaniment. So let me get that. All right. a very poignant piece for this time in everyone's life, really, right now. And thank you so much for listening to Schindler's List by John Williams. I recorded that with the Boston Symphony in 1994, so something I will never forget in my life. So it looks like we're getting down to the end of our program here. And again, if you liked what you heard, please support us because it will keep us coming back. It will keep me coming back and doing all kinds of different fun recitals, and this is a way we can enjoy each other's company from afar. And even requests. I mean, become my friend on Facebook, you know, look up Cambria Concerts Unplugged. Get in touch with me. Tell me what you want to hear. If you liked classical, maybe this was your first time listening to a classical concert. Everyone knows Brynn Albanese as not staying strictly classical. I'm going to do, we have time for two more, I think. I'm going to do one by Astor Piazzolla, which I did on my last Tiny Chapel concert, but it was so popular that people were like, please play that again. So I'm going to. It's called Oblivion. And, oops, okay, here we go. And Oblivion, what can I say? Boston Pops played this too, and this is actually where I first heard it, was playing this. I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to play this someday. So please enjoy Oblivion by Astor Piazzolla. Gotta love Piazzolla. All right, I'd like to specifically thank Mr. Paul Irving and his whole crew for making this happen. My wonderful sound man, Griffin, thank you so much for coming up to the chapel in Cambria and helping put on such a professional sounding performance. And thank you all so much for joining me. Of course, I cannot leave this afternoon without another tribute to Mr. Beethoven. I want you to make sure you get your dancing shoes on, because you're gonna need them, all right? I gotta move this because I gotta make some room here. Well, I'll put it over here. All right, here we go, you ready? All right, I'd like to present a fifth of Beethoven by, actually I have some program notes on this. Some really fun little tidbits about this. Okay, so Fifth of Beethoven. It's a disco instrumental that was recorded by Walter Murphy and the Big Apple Band. And in 1976, it was number 80 on the Billboard 100 chart, shot up to first place on the Billboard 100, and stayed there for 1 full week. So get on your dancing shoes. Here comes a fifth of Beethoven. everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you next time. Love you all, and have a wonderful, wonderful night. Take care of yourself, take care of each other, and be kind to each other. Bye-bye.